Hello, and welcome to ONET Academy. This previously recorded webinar is part of the ONET Academy webinar series, a set of online training presentations. This webinar recording, an ONET Academy briefing, using ONET as a competitive advantage in your job search, will start momentarily.
All right. With that, I want to turn things over to our speaker, Dr. Janet Wall. Janet?
Gary, thanks an awful lot, and welcome to all of you to this webinar on using ONET as a competitive advantage in your job search. My name is Janet Wall, and I am an independent consultant with interest areas in vocational assessment, career development, and workforce development, evaluation, vocational interests, and related areas. I'm also a certified career development facilitator instructor. And I've been working with Mayor and Mayor as a consultant doing these webinars on ONET-related topics, probably for about 5 or 6 years now. So this is a brand new webinar, first time offered. And the goals that I have for the webinar are those that you see on the screenshot. I want to kind of give you a reminder, overview of ONET and the kinds of information that ONET carries. And I want to review some summary information on ONET when you take a look at ONET online. And then I want to take a look at some tools and some things that you could do with ONET and ONET-related tools that can help you work with job seekers as they are looking for jobs in reemployment, in initial jobs, and so on. So there's a lot of helpful information out there that you can utilize, and certainly job seekers today, with the economic times that we have, are really needed that competitive edge to get jobs in this competitive workplace. So let's take a look at ONET. First off, as a common language, and what you see here is a view, a graphic of the kind of information that the ONET database contains. So this is the basic taxonomy that people work with as they developed the database on ONET occupations. So let me spend a minute or two just sort of taking you through this. If you take a look at the top 3 blocks, you see that those are worker-oriented blocks. And so on the left-hand side, we have worker characteristics such as abilities and occupational interests and work values and work styles. And then we have worker requirements, such as skills and knowledge and education. And then experience requirements, such as the amount of experience and training that they've had, the skills that they've had, entry-level requirements, licensing, and that sort of thing. The 3 blocks at the bottom relate to the actual occupational kinds of descriptors. They're job-oriented. So again, going from left to right, we see occupational requirements, such as generalized work activities, some detailed work activities, the organizational context, and also the work context. And then in that middle block, we have workforce characteristics, such as labor market information and the occupational outlook. For example, is the number of jobs increasing or decreasing as is projected? And then occupational specific information such as tasks and the specific tools and technology that might be utilized in that occupation. So again, this is the framework by which information has been collected on ONET occupations. So you can think of this as sort of a taxonomy. If you would drill down, if you would actually go to the ONET portal and drill down into those areas, you will see things like the abilities and occupational interests and work values and all burst out into many, many more subcategories. So this is the ONET common language at the highest level. All right, let's take a little reminder cruise through a typical summary report for an ONET occupation. And basically what the Department of Labor has done is they've taken the database of information on occupations, and they have it available as a database for you, but they've also created this user-friendly concept called ONET Online. and you can find that at online.onetcenter.org. And here is an example summary report for just a random occupation, dental laboratory technician. And you can see there's just an enormous amount of information available on the summary report. For example, it gives a very brief description of that occupation, which is construct and repair full or partial dentures or dental appliances. It gives you a sample of reported job titles. So if you have a job seeker looking for an occupation in this area, the job seeker can see, and you can see, what other terms are used for dental laboratory technicians. So, for example, dental technician, dental ceramicist, denture technician, waxer, and so on. So if they're looking at newspapers or job boards, they might see this occupation, a job in this occupation advertised with some different terms. So the summary report gives you an indication of what those terms might be. Then what you see is the beginning of the actual set of information about this occupation. So we see tasks, and we will be able to see tools and technology, and interests and skills, abilities, work activities, work context, job zone, interests, work style, work values, related occupations, and wages and employment. So what we see here is a listing of some of the tasks that are related to dental laboratory technicians. And you can read some of the tasks, and I'll just go over the first one. Read prescriptions or specifications and examine models and impressions to determine the design of dental products to be constructed. And you see a listing of some of the other tasks, and this is only a partial listing. If you actually go to the summary report, you'll be able to find more in the way of tasks. Now, also, for the in-demand occupations, you will find tools and technologies. And these are the tools and the technologies that someone in that occupation might be utilizing and would likely be utilizing. And so we see dental articulators or accessories as being one of the tools. And if you go down to the technology section, you see accounting software and database user interface and query software and so on. Also, the knowledges related to this occupation are listed. So, for example, a person in this occupation would need to know something about medicine and dentistry, production and processing, customer and personal service, design, and so on. All right, also the skills related to this occupation. So reading comprehension, time management, equipment selection, active learning, speaking, and so on down the line. And also the abilities that the person has to have: near vision, problem sensitivity, arm-hand steadiness, information ordering, oral comprehension, control precision, and the others. And then we have work activities, getting information, organizing, planning, and prioritizing work, communicating with supervisors and peers and subordinates. And then the work context also. Spend time using your hands to handle, control, or feel objects, tools, or controls. Time pressure. Indoors, environmentally controlled. Importance of being exact or accurate, and so on. Additionally, some other information is the interest areas. So for this occupation, the interest areas that are associated with it are realistic, investigative, and conventional. These areas are, in fact, related to Holland's vocational personality theory, which is also the basis for the interest profiler, which is one of the ONET assessment tools. And we have done webinars on these assessment tools before, but you can actually download the interest profiler and also the work importance profiler, which is a work values instrument, right from ONETcenter.org, and utilize those and hook into these occupations using those assessment tools. But additionally, we have work styles, and that's attention to detail and dependability and cooperation and achievement, effort, independence, and so on. And also, we have related occupations and wages and employment trends. So a person looking at this summary report can see related occupations and also see what the typical wages are and whether or not this particular occupation is a growing occupation, declining occupation, and really the rate of growth that is projected. So, for example, for this occupation, the projected growth between 2006 and 2016 is slower than average, 3% to 6% growth, and a projected need across the country is about 12,000 additional employees. So, again, this gives you a fairly good feel about the occupation. We're going to use an example summary report to actually translate this kind of information into something that can be very, very helpful to a job seeker. All right. Speaking of the job seeker, some of the job-seeking functions that a job seeker has to pursue is to identify the jobs that are out there, prepare a resume, successfully interview for a position, and also negotiate salary. And there are several ONET-based tools that can really help an individual in those various categories. So I want to go over some of those tools. The first might be identify jobs. Well, how does a person identify what jobs are out there in their chosen field? Well, if you go to Career OneStop, which is www.careeronestop.com, you really get a wealth of information that you can access from this site. But I just want to focus on just a couple of things. If you see to the top right, you can access state job banks, and I'll show you what kind of thing that will bring up. And you'll also be able to access a site that has been recently put up for worker reemployment. Again, given the economy and the loss of jobs in this economy, people are looking for reemployment. So there is a site that has been developed especially to help workers in the reemployment arena, and I'll show you a little bit of what's on that site. So first, let's take a look at state job banks. If you go down to that portion of the menu in the top right, and you drill down or you drop down the menu on state job banks, you can access the state job banks of all the states. So to give you an example of what might be on there, here are two of the home pages of two of the state job sites. So you have on the left-hand side the home page for the Illinois Job Bank, which is Illinois Skills Match. And on the right-hand side, I put up the screenshot of Nebraska's. But if you go to that site and use the drop-down menu, you can find the job site for the state that you are interested in. So these are all available. And if you have not visited your own personal state job site, you really should, especially if you're working to help job seekers in employment arena. All right, here's an example of what you can see and access from the new reemployment website. So you can see that you can find a OneStop Career Center, and I'm looking at the top left-hand side of the home page. So just by entering a zip code or a city or selecting a state, you can get all the OneStop Career Centers. And this is where you can get assistance in terms of finding jobs, writing resumes, learning how to interview, accessing educational information, skills development, assessments, and so on. So you really should find the OneStop center that is closest to you and visit them and see what kind of information they have available to assist various job seekers. Also, there's an opportunity to get immediate help, such as unemployment benefits, health care coverage, dealing with job loss, and so on. But I want to focus on the Finding a Job section. And here again, you can use the drop-down menu to find out what each state has to offer. And an example of that, and here's the results for Illinois, what you have here is the capability of accessing a variety of various job banks. So you can access right here from on the left-hand side on the top, the actual Illinois State Job Bank, which I showed you before. And then also what's provided is private sector job banks, such as America's Job Exchange, Career Builder, Employment Guide, Flipdog, Hire Me Now, Job Central, Jobs, Monster. And also on the slide or the little section to the right, private sector portals, which can bring you to a variety of sets of information. And here we have listed things like careerbuilder.com, federal government jobs, Indeed, Job Central, and the Beehive. So again, use that information or that little tool that I showed you from the reemployment website to find the variety of job banks that are recommended by your state's job site. One other wonderful thing that you find from the reemployment site are other resources. So again, given this environment of people being laid off, people losing their jobs, there's a section on how you can find a job even during a recession. So some information on job hunting after a job loss, networking during a recession, how to use job banks, and then the ability to browse various job sites, such as state job banks, general job banks, and they have them listed in groupings, alphabetical groupings, state and local job banks, international job banks, specialty, which are niche job banks, fee-based resume databases, free resume databases, and so on. So there's a wealth of information that you, working with job seekers, can utilize to assist them, or if it's a self-service kind of situation, things that people can access themselves to help them in their job search. Also on this site is a career resource library that you can access by keywords. You just put in keywords like resumes or interviews and see what kind of resources will pop up for you. Just some general ones here, some web resources on job applications, job seekers' guide to successfully completing job applications. So this is the keyword of applications that we were utilizing. And even access to some application articles, some helpful hints that people should pay attention to as they are completing a job application, such as list of names, employers, titles, addresses, phone numbers, personal references, professional references, and so on in your application. Be honest. Employers can verify the information on the application before or after they hire. Completing the job application, print clearly and neatly. Use capital and lowercase letters appropriately. Use proper grammar and punctuation. So, again, some helpful tips that are particularly important if someone's been working on the job for several years and they haven't applied for a job in many, many years. Some people might need a little reminder about what the appropriate expectations are in an application. And this is what I've shown you, just a small portion of what's available from the website that you can utilize or a job seeker can utilize. All right, I want to go back to ONET Online and suggest to you some ways that you can use the actual summary report to help in the preparation of resumes. So you would go to ONET Online, and I just want to show you what else is available here. We're going to use the Find Occupations function, but there's also a crosswalk search. I think particularly useful in that crosswalk search are the crosswalks between the ONET occupations and military occupations. So if you're working with a veteran who's looking for a job in the civilian sector, this crosswalk can be extremely useful. You can do a tools and technology search. So if you have a job seeker who is particularly adept at some specific tools, you can see what other occupations use those tools. And so that would be a way of transporting their particular skills in that area to another occupation. You can do a skill search, and you should try that if you haven't within the ONET system. It's basically checking off the various skills within an occupation and seeing what other occupations relate to that grouping of skills that you've checked off. But I want to go to Find Occupations. And so in doing so, I put in, for this example, budget analyst. And I see the typical summary report, which has the short description of the occupation, the sample of reported job titles, and right now we're going to focus on tasks. And so we see several tasks that are associated with this occupation. And a person can review those tasks and actually craft some of the wording or be made aware of some of the tasks within their occupation that they may not have thought about before as they're thinking about applying for a new job. So a person, by reading those tasks, can actually translate one or more of those tasks into accomplishments that they can put on their resume. So, for example, as a result of my work on the fiscal 08 cost-benefit analysis, the company was able to save $59,000 in equipment costs in one quarter. And that's the kind of thing that an employer really wants to see on a resume. They want to see what the person has accomplished, what benefit has that person had or contributed to a previous employer. So again, by looking at the tasks, and the second one from the bottom is perform cost-benefit analysis to compare operating programs, review financial requests, or explore alternative financing methods. The person can relate to some of their accomplishments and come up with a statement that looks very much like the one that I have highlighted in the red and orange. So again, it's an accomplishment. It's something that the new employer would hope to have a new employee that actually has done something for the company and is likely to do something for the new employer. The tools and technology. Here is for budget analysts, the tools and technology that are associated with that occupation. And so the tools would be, in this instance, desktop computers, laser printers, notebook computers, personal computers, the technology, accounting software, database user interface and query software, enterprise resource planning, financial analysis software, human resources software, time accounting software. Again, kind of reminding the person the kinds of tools and technology that they use, even though it's typical within their job and they might not think about it. This highlights the fact that this is something special. And so, again, they can translate that into something that they have contributed to the company. So held training programs for every new employee on our accounting system, increasing our productivity by 15%. Okay, again, an accomplishment, which is something that should go on a resume. And you can do that with any of these particular tools and technologies. That's just one example. All right, knowledge. All right, some of the knowledge that is required within this occupation: economics and accounting, English language, mathematics, administration and management, computers and electronics, clerical, customer and personal service, law and government, personnel and human resources. All right, so advise the COO on accounting principles and legal codes pertinent to our company. So again, an accomplishment that the person has had that can be they can be reminded of by taking a look at the knowledge. And skills: critical thinking, reading comprehension, speaking, active listening, mathematics, judgment and decision making, complex problem solving, management of financial resources, monitoring and writing. All right, again, an example of what one can do: wrote the company's annual report and presented it to our board of advisors at the annual stockholders meeting. Work activities. So work activities of getting information, interacting with computers, analyzing data or information, processing information, communicating with supervisors, peers, or subordinates, organizing, planning, and prioritizing work, making decisions and solving problems, identifying objects, actions, and events. Again, taking that and perhaps translating it into something that's more accomplishment or action-oriented, researched and analyzed information on new production systems, which was smoothly implemented, saving $47,000 in the first 6 months of use. So again, an example of how you can really use the ONET summary report as a launching point for creating accomplishment-based resumes. Again, something that would get the attention of a new of a job seeker in this economy. All right, I want to focus on 4 additional tools that you might find helpful, and this is from Career InfoNet, and they can be found on www.careerinfonet.org. And the 4 tools are Employer Locator, Job Description Writer, Resume Tutorial, and Salary Information. I really recommend that you go to this site. Again, the occupational information is ONET-based, and you can find specific occupational information, industry information, state information, and really, if you take a look at the home page, there's just a whole array of useful tools that you can utilize. But I can't focus on all of them, so I'm going to focus on 4 that I think are particularly pertinent here. All right, so each of the career tools we're going to go over in terms of what they can provide to the job seeker. All right, one that I'm not going to go over in detail is the resume tutorial. And again, this is on Career InfoNet. And what it can do is it can take you, and this also can be a self-service. A person, a job seeker can do this themselves. And go to the resume tutorial and kind of see what's expected on a resume. And there are descriptions of what you should put on when and what's important to utilize and put onto a resume, what might not be so important. It'll also provide some information on what do you do when it's an electronic resume. So again, very helpful information for a person who may not have put together a resume in many, many years and has not kind of kept things up to date. Again, this is very pertinent for perhaps someone who's been on the job for 20, 25 years, has never had to look for a job before, has always been secure in their job, but the economy has changed, and so now they're on the street looking for a new job and need a good resume in order to get the attention of an employer. So I would recommend that you become familiar with the resume tutorial and encourage people that you're working with to do the same. All right, one thing that's important is for people to see where the employers are. All right, they're looking for a new job. Who are the employers in their particular area? So the employer locator is really very helpful in this regard. And you do that by first selecting an industry. So here we have finance and insurance as one of the industries that we're going to look at because we're going to work with budget analysts. But you can see that there are several industry sectors that are listed: accommodation and food services, administrative and support, waste management and remediation services, agriculture, forestry, fishing and hunting, arts, entertainment, and recreation. And there are many more. As you can see, the list is much longer. But we take a look at finance and insurance. And when we do that, it asks for the particular state. So we have selected the state of Washington, because that's where our job seeker is. And then it asks for the particular region in that state that the person is interested in. So we have selected the Bellingham statistical area. And then it asks for, within that particular portion of Washington, what city are you really interested in? And we have selected Bellingham. And you can see that there are 125 employers meeting that criteria that are hiring people or that are potentially hiring people in that particular industry. So here is a way to help the job seeker kind of broaden their outlook. All right, maybe they don't have a job with the employer that they've been working with for so many years, but take a look at the other employers that are out there and see if they are hiring. And so by clicking on Bellingham, what you would be able to find is the actual name of the company, the address, website if they have any, email address. And here is a way for a person to find the human resources section of the company. They can actually call to see if perhaps someone would be able to talk with them, maybe even to do an informational interview, at least start the process of networking and finding out what the lay of the land is for their particular occupation. And, sometimes it actually ends up with a person getting a job. All right, let's talk about salary. Also on Career InfoNet, you can find salary information nationally and also by state. If you take a look at the left-hand side, you see that you can actually search by occupation, or you can go to various groupings or job families of occupations and start searching that way. And if you do that, if you do it by job family, what it will do is it will burst out into the various occupations that are categorized according to that job family. But we're going to search for an occupation by a particular occupational title, budget analyst. So in doing that, then it would come up with a request for, it will show you the national information as we see here. So we see that on the high end, the salaries for budget analysts are going to be about $97,000. On the low end, about $41,000. And the middle, about $63,000. And that's really good to know nationally. However, what's probably more helpful is for a person to know what the general job salary ranges are by state. So you can actually select a state, or you can put in a zip code. And I've put in a zip code here of where I grew up in Illinois, 60629. And in doing that, what it gives me is a comparison now of the United States, which is the dark blue, and then the zip code that I've selected, which are the red bars. So we can see in every case, in the zip code 60629, which is the Chicago, Naperville, Joliet metropolitan statistical area, the salaries tend to be higher than they are across the nation. So on the high end, it would be $115,000. On the low end, about $48,000. So again, it gives the person, a fairly good range of what the salaries are typically within their state or within a smaller area. So again, this is helpful when negotiating a salary. ONET and the summary report, if you remember, the summary report had wages information that you could tap into. So you don't have to go into a Career InfoNet. You can actually stay within the ONET summary report and take a look at the wage information. And here it would be providing the same kind of information, United States and Illinois, and also gives you a comparison chart as well. So it just depends on which website you're in. But again, it's based on occupations that are ONET related. All right. What might even be more helpful is to compare salaries or look for salaries more on the local level. So sometimes even state information is too broad, but you can actually find it at the smaller local level as well. And again, this is from Career InfoNet. And as you can see on Career InfoNet, you can find occupational information such as a profile of an occupation, again, which is ONET-based, military to civilian occupation translator, tools and technology, fastest growing, most openings, largest employment, declining, highest paying. But we're going to focus on compare local wages. And here again, what is required is that you select a state. So for purposes of example, we're going to take a look at North Carolina. And so we would click on North Carolina, and we put in our keyword of budget analyst. But again, we can search by job family as well, or what they're calling here job groups. But we want to take this information and look at it in a smaller geographic area. So we're looking at Charlotte, Gastonia, Concord, North Carolina. But you can see on this right-hand side there are several cities or local areas within North Carolina for which there is information. So we would click on Continue, and here now we would get a comparison of the United States, North Carolina, and the Charlotte area, and we can see how those compare. So let's take a look at the median wages and salaries for 2007 for budget analysts. So for the United States, it was $63,400. For North Carolina, $56,500. And for the Charlotte area, it's a little bit lower at $54,200. So when a person is negotiating a salary, again, they have a better feel for the possibilities with regard to their salary requirements. So I think this is very useful in the salary negotiation portion of the job hunt. All right, the last little tool has been developed really for the employer. And this is the job description writer. I want to suggest to you that this tool can be used to come up with a basic resume instead of a job description, because it's ONET-based. So again, this would be something that an employer, if they're wanting to develop a job description, can follow the steps that are listed and actually come up with an ONET-based common language kind of resume. But I want to show you how it can be used by a job seeker or by you as you're working with a job seeker in crafting resumes. All right, and we're going to follow the steps that an employer would follow, but we're going to think about this in a slightly different way. All right, first you need to select the occupation. So a person has been a budget analyst. Again, you can do this via menu search. So we're going to put in budget analyst. And what comes up, actually first for the employer, it requests the name of the company, the telephone, website, short description of the job, and so on. But for the job seeker wanting to do a resume, you just skip over that. So what comes up is a set of the tasks specific to the occupation. So one can look at these tasks and say, yes, I do this. Yes, I do this. No, I don't. Yes, I do this. Yes, I do this. And check the various boxes of the various tasks that the budget analyst who is looking for a new position can actually put on their list. And as you can see on top, you can select them all, or you can deselect them all and just check off the ones that are pertinent to the occupation. Then it will ask for work activities. And so the person can check those work activities that they've done. So, for example, they've checked off interacting with computers, develop or maintain budgeting databases, use computers to enter, access, and retrieve financial data, use spreadsheet software, and you can see the others. Work context. So they can select those things that are pertinent, that require face-to-face discussion with individuals, requires contact with others, opportunity to make decisions without supervision, freedom to determine tasks, priorities, and goals. And again, think about this from the job seeker's perspective, even though this is employer-related. Skills. So the person can check off the skills that they believe they have and they use on the job. And here they've checked off critical thinking, learning strategies, mathematics, monitoring, and so on. Then tools and technology. And so this person has checked off that they use accounting software, Microsoft Access, relational database software, structured query language, SQL. And from an employer perspective, what they would end up is a final job description based on the various things that they've selected. If this is a job seeker, what they end up with is those things that they've selected that they believe they have done on the job. They can modify it right from here, or they can transfer it into Microsoft Word and actually now create a formal resume that is ONET-based. So they may want to modify some of the words. They may want to delete some things now that they've looked at the list. They can add some things that perhaps they thought of after looking at tools and technology and tasks and work context and so on. So again, they can edit right from here or transfer it right into Microsoft Word, delete what needs to be deleted, put in their name and their address and their contact information, and come up with a resume, again, that is ONET-based, that employers should be able to understand because of the common language of ONET. So it's kind of using this particular electronic tool that's available to you in a slightly different way with a slightly different purpose. So here we're using it for the job seeker when the tool was actually created for an employer to create a job description. So I think this can be very useful as well. And again, it's another way to use ONET information to actually create the resume. And one last thing is you can use this information. You can, if the job seeker can see what their occupation is about, and when they go for the interview, they can actually talk in the common language that the employer understands, that now they've been reminded of in terms of what they have done on the job. They can start talking, again, the language that the employer would like to hear. And so, again, it's a reminder to individuals about the kind of breadth and depth and skills, knowledge, and abilities that they have utilized in their occupation, even though they may not have thought about all those things before. So it's again a reminder to the job seeker about those kinds of things that they have accomplished, the tools and technology they know about, their skills and abilities, and so on. So it gets them ready. It gets them the pump sort of primed for an interview. And so, in summary, I've shown you a few tools that are ONET-based that can be used for job seeking and resume preparation and recognizing salary and wage information so that they can negotiate, and also to help them prepare for interviews, really giving that job seeker that needed competitive edge in this particular economy where there are, in many instances, hundreds of, if not thousands of people trying to get that same job. So this could be a way to give them that little extra attention by the employer and making them kind of better known to the employer, better understanding their occupation, being able to articulate what they do on the job. All right, I see a number of questions have come in. So I've got one more slide to show you, but let me address some of the questions. Okay. The first one is, what can we find to assist a customer who only has a high school diploma and is not sure how to transfer their skills for a new job? Well, there are several ways. You can go to ONET Online, and you can search, by job zone. And a job zone runs from 1 through 5. And job zone of 1 is at the lowest education and training and experience level, and that will show them information on the various occupations that may not require a high level of education. Now, there are other tools that you can find on Career InfoNet that can help you in that regard. And also, if you take a look at the skills search, which is part of ONET Online, you can actually have them put in their skills that they believe they have and that they want to utilize, and see what kind of occupations come up. There's a comment, doesn't seem to be specific to the occupation, seems very general. If you're referring to ONET Online, there are, as we saw in the taxonomy, there are some things that are cross occupations, and there are some things that are specific to occupations. So the occupations have some similarities. So, for example, reading comprehension might be something that cuts across all occupations. But then something might be very much occupation specific that isn't found in all the occupations. And ONET has both of those things included. The PowerPoint is great. Is it possible for us to download the PowerPoint to make a similar presentation to job seekers? Yeah, Gary mentioned that at the beginning you could have downloaded it immediately, but if you go to ONETacademy.com, and I'll show you that URL in just a moment, when this particular presentation is archived, the PowerPoint slides will also be available there, and you can download it, make the changes that you wish to make it more pertinent and tailored to your community, and utilize it. So I'm glad you found some of the information helpful, and I'm happy that you will be using it for helping more people. All right, were the example resume entries found in actual resumes, or were they composed for today's presentation? I composed them for today's presentation. But you can find similar sorts of things on a variety of different resumes. How often is this data updated? My question is related to the employer locator. Can you find individual employers? Yeah, that's the whole purpose of the employer locator, is you actually do find employers. I don't know how often it's updated, so I suppose, given the fact that some businesses have recently closed, it could be that the employer locator is a little bit out of date and not kept up with the current turmoil in the economy. But goodness, it's a wonderful start. Are these lists of employers hiring current? No, they're employers that are in the area. And you would know that by actually contacting them and getting a hold of their human resources department, or if it's a smaller business, personnelist or something, to find out if they are hiring. Let's see. Can the ONET interest profiler job zones link to actual jobs currently available in state job banks? I don't think so. I don't think the jobs are actually listed by job zone, so you would actually have to read the job announcement in order to make that determination, looking for what the education, training, and experience requirements might be. Any suggestions for those who are monolingual with limited skills and no high school diploma? My suggestion to you would please take a look at ONET Online and take a look at the information that's there. Also go to Career InfoNet and take a look at some of the tools there that will show information at a variety of education levels. How current is the wage information? You can see that the wage information is updated. Some instances every 2 years, some instances every 1 year. If the question is related, how does it relate to the current economy? I doubt that information is keeping pace, and that's not the intent. The intent is to provide the general information. So in order to get current information about a particular occupation in a particular area, I would suggest going to the employer to find that out definitively. All right, are there other questions that you have? And, okay, what is the SVP range in the job zone part? It's a specific, SVP is specific vocational preparation. If you go to online, ONET Online, they actually have a description of what that is. So you'll be able to understand a little bit better by looking at it. We serve the severe and persistently ill population. Many have not worked in years and need special accommodations. Can these tools be beneficial with our needs? I would hope so. But like with anything, you as the expert in the field, as the workforce development person, the career OneStop person, the career coach, the career counselor, you have to use judgment about all of these tools and make modifications where it's necessary. If it's physical handicaps, you'll be able to see the kinds of skills that might be required by that occupation. So if they need to have, let's say, trunk strength, and your person doesn't have that, then it's not something they can necessarily learn. So it may not be that they're going to be successful in that occupation, and perhaps there's an accommodation. And if you go to the homepage of ONET Online, I believe it's at the bottom of the homepage. You can see something called JAN, Job Accommodation Network. And I would suggest to you to click on that link, and there's a variety of information there that you can utilize to see what kinds of accommodations could be made for a variety of different sorts of conditions. I find the Job Accommodation Network to be just really extremely helpful and comprehensive. So take a look at that. And where did you find the job description writer? That is on Career InfoNet. And let me go ahead and click to the last slide, which has the resources. So the resources, ONET Resource Center, which is kind of the portal for all ONET information. And from here, you can actually access ONET Online. You can access ONET Online directly if you want. But the ONET Resource Center really has everything. Here's where you can access ONET Online. You can get the ONET Interest Profiler, actually all the assessment tools, various technical reports, various descriptions of how ONET is updated, and so on. So it's got everything. I can't, if the question can be answered, you'll find the answer on onetcenter.org. And then for a variety of training, such as podcasts and, of course, archived webinars and announcements of upcoming webinars, you go to onetacademy.com. And we recently posted a bunch of podcasts, little audio recordings of about, 7 minutes, 7, 8 minutes, of people who use ONET in particular ways. So going to those podcasts may give you some ideas on how you might use ONET for your kind of customer. And then America's Career InfoNet, which is a great starting place for career information. Let's see if there's another question that came in. This has been a very useful webinar for the population I work with. They have limited skills and have a tool to help them recall and put on a resume. Will be great. Thank you. Okay, thank you for making that comment. I appreciate that. Yeah, and again, you have to take a look at I've just skimmed over what these tools can do. So what you really need to do is to go back to those tools and see what else you can do with them. Take a look at some of the other tools that I didn't go over today that could be potentially useful to you. And again, we've reviewed some of the other available tools in previous webinars. So if you go to onetacademy.com and the recorded webinar section, you'll have an opportunity to listen to previous webinars that we've done for students and military in transition, the older worker, the ONET assessment tools, and so on. So with that, I thank you for your participation, and I want to pass you back to Gary.
Thanks, Janet. Well, those of you that are still with us, which it looks like the bulk of you are, we have recorded today's session. We're going to be posting the recording to ONET Academy under the recorded webinar section, the webinar recording section on the homepage of ONET Academy, and that's www.onetacademy.com. The PowerPoint has already been posted. The recording, as I said, will be up in 2 business days. So look for those resources if you want to go back, view the recording, download the PowerPoint, as Dr. Wall is pointing out that you can do, or to forward those links along to a colleague. All right. I also want to note that we are going to be conducting another webinar this month on the 24th about the transferability of skills. It's going to be also held at noon Eastern. And if you'd like to register for that session, I've made that link available in the chat window at the left hand of your screen. You can also register for the session by visiting onetacademy.com as well. All right. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Dr. Wall, for taking the time out of your day to speak during the webinar. So I want to thank again everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you on future webinars. Have a good day, everyone.